So, you really think we'll find it here?
I don't know, but this certainly seems like the place.
The scariest levels in every Sonic game. Well, let's start looking until we find them all.
Do I really need to be here for this?
You're already here.
What if this place is haunted?
Just relax. I'm sure it won't be that scary. Hey, I think that went pretty well.
I'm never doing that again!
Alright, Sonic and Chip just came back from their most recent adventure, and they've brought back the scariest levels in every main Sonic game, so let's go over them all. It seems like they missed some though. Guess I'll need to get some help to fill in the blanks. But before that, I think it's best that we separate them into different categories, because naturally some levels are scarier than others. So I've got 5 categories. Listen up, because I'm going over them quick. Sonic Speed Style. There's the more high action stages with maybe a few scary elements. Levels that take place in an Eggman base, usually those can be scary. The world-ending levels, which can have varying degrees of scariness. The isolated/alone levels, which can be scary because of their atmosphere. And finally, the downright creepy stages, which could be scary for any number of reasons. Also, while gameplay may slightly influence why some levels are scarier than others, I'm not really going to focus on that part too much, since the gameplay itself isn't literally scary. Now then, let's get into the more high action focused levels, which may not be the scariest, but they make the list regardless. Okay, some of these levels definitely aren't that scary, so I figured we'd do them first. Let's start with Terminal Velocity from Sonic Colors. This area consists of 2 short levels and the final boss of the game. Now, Sonic Colors is not a scary game, in fact it's one of the least scariest Sonic games out there, but the reason I chose Terminal Velocity over something like Asteroid Coaster, which if you want to say that's scarier, then I wouldn't really say you're wrong, but the fact that during Act 2, Sonic has to outrun a black hole makes it the scariest level in Sonic Colors to me. Again, feel free to disagree, lots of people find lots of different things scarier than others, but if I had to outrun a black hole, I'd be pretty scared. Sonic Colors takes place in an amusement park, and even though some levels have darker themes than others, the game isn't that scary. So Sonic Colors, you can have the award for least scary Sonic game. Not that this is going in order, because it isn't, but might as well choose one game to be the least scary, right? Next up in this category is Radical Highway from Shadow Generations. Most of the levels in Shadow Gens aren't that scary, but at least Radical Highway has this thing. And the Black Doom boss isn't like incredibly scary, but it's definitely pretty gross looking, which some people may consider scary. There's just something about the general atmosphere of Radical Highway here, more so in Act 2 really, that just gives off a scarier vibe than anything else in the game. I just don't think there's any other level that's really all too scary. Space Colony Arc maybe could be, but nothing about the arc in Shadow Gens is really scary, unlike some other games. Don't worry, you'll see what I mean later. So that's why I have to give the scariest level in this game to Radical Highway. Then the other Generations game also doesn't really have any scary levels. Since this game is a celebration of Sonic's history, they kept the story simple, and the levels are a lot more action-oriented, with really only one level that might be considered scary, which is Crisis City. This one is a lot like Radical Highway in Shadow Gens, where the atmosphere carries this one heavily, and just knowing the context behind it from Sonic 06 can make it a bit scarier, but as a whole, you're really just blasting through enemies and fire here in this one. Like a destroyed city aesthetic is a great idea for a scary level, if it's played into, which just really isn't what Generations does, but no other level in this game is even remotely close to scary, so this one is the best we've got, making Crisis City from Sonic Generations the scariest level in the game. Now we can get into some of the good stuff brought in. The Eggman levels. These levels should be a lot more traditionally scary, maybe not with like full-on horror elements or anything, but we're not in Green Hill Zone anymore, because right now it's time for the Scrap Brain! Sonic 1's scariest zone is definitely Scrap Brain, since it shows the player for the very first time what will happen to the world if Eggman isn't stopped. There's saw blades, fire, and electricity everywhere, and the look of the place is completely metaled up and devoid of life. Not to mention that Act 3 sends you back to Labyrinth Zone, because they just knew you'd love that. But that's also why I didn't pick Labyrinth Zone for Sonic 1, because while that level is nightmarish, Scrap Brain Zone is more thematically and aesthetically scary, while also punishing you with Labyrinth Zone as your final level. Then for Sonic 3D Blast we have, Panic Puppet Zone. I'm gonna be 100% honest here, I've never fully played Sonic 3D Blast, and the thought of doing so is scarier than any level on this list, so I'll keep this brief. I saw the level map for Act 2, and it has a giant Robotnik statue, for some reason, and you go into his nose at the end? Oh, this level seems more gross than scary, but it's technically an Eggman base, so that's why I'm including it here in this section. I can imagine that having this giant statue staring down at you would be really creepy, and also, what other levels are scarier in Sonic 3D Blast? No, genuinely, like, which one would be scarier than this? I've only ever played Green Grove and Rusty Ruin, but like I said, I'm not leaving this game out, and I think this act has convinced me that Panic Puppet Zone is indeed the scariest level in Sonic 3D Blast, so that's what I'm going with here. Oh, good. Now it's time for an actual scary Eggman level, Eggman Land from Sonic Unleashed. This is the final level of the game, and it's the first time we ever really get to see Eggman Land fully realized, and boy does it not hold back whatsoever. This level looks scary, with tons of Eggman iconography all over the place. The aesthetics have a creepy theme park look to them, but they're still not safe in the slightest. And this is all tied together with just how difficult the level is when playing it. And then beneath all the exterior Eggman design, you have Dark Gaia and its creatures lurking down below, which are pretty scary. The colors and atmosphere definitely give off the vibe that you should not be here, just like any good scary place should. And the sky just being at this red dusk time absolutely adds to the horror vibe. There's also just some crazy set pieces that you have to traverse as Sonic, like the inside of these lava tanks, a crazy roller coaster that leads to your doom, in the depths of the base fighting off hordes of Dark Gaia monsters. Then you fight the Egg Dragoon while falling to the center of the earth, which is pretty scary if you think about it. And Eggman is really pissed off in this fight too. Sonic has to tell him to calm down.
Jeez, Eggman, simmer down!
Because of how far he's going to try and kill him, so Eggman is out for blood here. Scary stuff. Most of Unleashed is actually really tame in terms of its scariness, despite the literal werehog monster being present, because most of the levels in this game are realistic looking locations, but Eggman Land is anything but realistic, and it's definitely the scariest level in Sonic Unleashed. Thanks for coming, Detective Lag. As I'm sure you're aware, Sonic and Chip missed a few of the scariest levels on their most recent adventure, so I'd like you to help me out. So what do you think is the scariest level in Sonic and the Secret Rings?
Secret Rings is home to some of the most unique level themes in the entire series. You have pirate ships, ancient palaces, Syrian hot foundries, and even flying manta ray prisons. There are a lot of great candidates here for the scariest level, but my pick might just be the simplest of them all, and that's to its benefit. I'm giving it to Lost Prologue. Ever since I was a kid, something always felt off about this place. It's this consuming white void with pages of random text extending infinitely into the horizon. Now, by itself, I wouldn't think this is too scary, but what really sells it for me is the music. It's foreboding and ambient, but also disturbing. These are the last remnants of a chapter that Eraser destroyed. It's like the game is telling you that this is what will happen to the rest of the Arabian Nights if you don't stop him in time. Every other level in Secret Rings is bursting with all this color and set pieces, but here, it's all empty.
Perfect. And how about Sonic Frontiers? I know that one in particular might be a bit tricky.
Frontiers is a weird case as to what the scariest level is. Cyberspace is made up of reused level themes, and 3 of the 5 islands share the same aesthetic as well, so that only leaves Ares and Chaos, and I think I'll go with Ares. For the most part, this island is your relatively standard desert, dotted with a couple oases, but these canyons here are what sell it as the scariest island. It's a bit hard to hear with the music on, but anytime you enter them, you'll hear a long, droning sound of something. It's probably just the wind, but there's always that sinking feeling that something else could be hiding out here. This underground area, too, is super unique to anything else on the other islands. What could the ancients have used it for? All this goes without mentioning the music here. I'd say the Ares movements are some of the most ambient in the whole game. All of these elements come together to really sell the fact that you're isolated here, stranded on this random island in the middle of nowhere. Now that's pretty terrifying. And Shark is here, that's pretty scary.
Well said, Detective Lag. Thanks again for stopping by. I'd say it's time we up the scary, don't you? Let's look at some world-ending levels. Starting us off with Capital City from Sonic Forces. Okay, so like, Forces has a lot of levels that could be considered world-ending, since that's like the whole premise of the game, but I decided to go with Capital City specifically because that's the level where you get those creepy infinite illusion things that look pretty scary. So while honestly there's some really good levels that you could choose from Forces to be the scariest, Imperial Tower could have also been a really good pick. I just went for more creepy than existential dread here, since these infinite worm things are not the prettiest to look at. The level itself isn't very long, welcome to Sonic Forces, but this is also the level where Operation Big Wave takes place, which is honestly one of the funniest parts of the entire game out of context, but if we're looking at this as an in-universe event, the fact that 80% of the forces for this operation were wiped out is pretty terrifying. Like imagine you were at war and heard that 80% of the troops you were with just got wiped out. Again, since Force's story takes itself almost too seriously, none of this is actually all that scary to the player, and the majority of the same things are happening all throughout the game, but those infinite illusions are by far one of the weirdest and creepiest things in any level, so Capital City is my pick for the scariest level in Sonic Forces. Sonic and the Black Knight is surprisingly not that scary for what it could have been. There's really two main levels that I think could be the scariest, those being Dragon's Lair, where Sonic fights a red dragon, and Knight's Passage, which doesn't really sound or even look all that scary at first, but in terms of the story context, and also what's going on in the background of the level, this one is pretty scary, so ultimately, it's the one I decided to go with. Knight's Passage takes place just after Sonic and the Black Knight's fake-out ending. Great idea with that one, Sonic team. I wonder how many people actually stopped playing after beating King Arthur. Anyways, the scenario here is that the castle is currently being transformed into the Dark Hollow by Merlina, and essentially the underworld is taking over the world, and we're in the world-ending level section, so yeah, the world is basically ending. Or is it? Maybe the scariest part about all of this is that Merlina doesn't actually want to end the world, but she instead wants to trap it in its current state forever using dark magic. That all begins taking place, which is why Sonic has to flee the kingdom in Knight's Passage. You really don't see too much of that happening in this level though, but I think the existential dread from the world literally ending just around the corner makes this the scariest level in Sonic and the Black Knight. I wouldn't blame you for picking Dragon's Lair though. And now for the literal end of the world from Sonic 06. This stage takes the cake for being the most world-ending stage in a Sonic game, since that's literally what it's called, and if I were at the end of the world, I'd not just be scared, but I'd be terrified. At least with most of these other levels, the world-ending parts are usually trying to be prevented, but in this one here, the world is pretty much already gone. Like, the main cast is just stuck in the void here. Sure, they do visit different levels that you played throughout the game, but honestly I wonder how much of that was just because they didn't have enough time to actually make a full-on end-of-the-world level. That's pure speculation though. But the stage itself is not very fun to play through either. Each area gets corrupted and is being essentially ripped apart by these eyeball things, which also pull you in and instantly kill you. Great gimmick, this level is definitely working as intended. And the main objective here is to collect the Chaos Emeralds to revive Sonic. Because yeah, he's dead here. I think Sonic being dead, and also that the world is ending around you, makes this a pretty scary Sonic level, and although Sonic 06 does have some other scary levels like Crisis City, this one takes the scariest for me, and also if I didn't put the stage literally called End of the World in the world-ending category, then that'd just be a crazy missed opportunity. Welcome in, Detective Skirbs. As I said before, Sonic and Chip missed a few of the scariest levels on their most recent adventure, so I need your help. What do you think is the scariest level in Sonic 3 and Knuckles?
I'd say the scariest level in Sonic 3 has gotta be Sandopolis, specifically Act 2. I feel like this one is a given considering you spend the entire level trying to keep the place from going dark so that those evil ghosts don't appear. For me, it's the way they loom over your screen the longer you go without grabbing onto one of those pulleys, and the fact that they become bigger and more menacing in appearance as the level gradually goes darker as time goes on, that really puts you on edge all throughout. Let me tell you, as a kid, those little guys terrified me. I'd always run out of the room once they started swarming your screen and attacking you, and it doesn't help when you're also trying to avoid getting crushed by the rising pile of sand, which in of itself is also scary.
That's what I was thinking too. Good choice. And how about Sonic Mania? That one could probably have a couple different answers.
When it comes to Sonic Mania, I feel like Oil Ocean takes the cake for scariest level in the game. Particularly Act 2, considering that level shares the same gimmick as Sandopolis Act 2 from Sonic 3. The only difference here being now instead of ghosts, you have to worry about the toxic fumes filling up your screen and slowly depleting your ring count. I also think that the submarine gimmick, while cool and unique, is its own kind of scary. I don't know, I'm just not fond of submarines in general, considering you're being submerged deep underwater in a small and enclosed space.
Thanks for helping out, Detective Skirbs. I'll see you around. Next up, we've got some that's a little less scary in terms of like the world ending or scary things attacking you, but instead we get to focus on the levels that make you feel lost or alone. Ones that have an eeriness to them, which is obtained through that feeling of isolation and dread, not knowing what might be around. The first level in this section is the Doom from Shadow the Hedgehog. Now, Shadow 05 has a lot of really good candidates for scary levels, and picking the scariest honestly comes down to what you're more afraid of personally. Like, are you scared of being invaded by aliens? Well, then something like Westopolis or Central City might be the scariest one to you. Or how about weird looking places and mazes? Then maybe it's Lost Impact or Black Comet. Or is knowing the outcome of a level, but still having to play through it, an isolated space station being invaded by the military, the scariest one? That's what the Doom is. It's the main turning point of Shadow's origin story, the one we've all heard about, where Gunn raids the Ark and kills everyone on board, including Maria. But now you have to play through all of that. Honestly, without the context, this level isn't all that scary. It's more anxious and adrenaline filled, since to Shadow he's technically learning about his past here, but for the player themselves, they know what's going to happen here. They know this is where Shadow becomes who he is today. And that meta level of anxiety or dread that you might feel while playing this level is what I think makes it the scariest to me. You made the choice to play through this level and watch Maria get shot at the end. It's not one of the last levels, so you can play through the entire game without ever needing to play this level. It's completely optional. So that's why I think the Doom is the scariest level in Shadow 05. This one definitely does depend on what you find scarier though, because if you get scared by more traditional means, then again, something like Westopolis might be scarier to you, but for me, it's the feeling of isolation and already knowing the outcome without being able to change it that makes this one the scariest. But okay, here's something a lot more concrete. Lost World from Sonic Adventure. This level is like the definition of this entire category. You're going through a hidden ancient world, all while getting lost and feeling more and more isolated the deeper in you go. This place is filled with traps, so you never know what you're about to run into, which creates that anxiety that I'm looking for in these levels. Not to mention that you're also figuring out what exactly this place even is, and at the end of the level, you discover a mural of a giant monster destroying the earth. Pretty scary stuff. I know some people might enjoy this type of expedition if it were for like a research project or stealing hidden treasure Indiana Jones style, but this level is literally just Sonic getting lost, which should be obvious, you know, given the name and all. I think Lost World is the scariest level in Sonic Adventure, even though Red Mountain does have some creepy stuff inside the volcano part, but you're mostly running past all of that since it's just in the background, whereas in Lost World, you're actively experiencing the entire place, not knowing what you might find. Sonic CD was honestly a tough one to pick the scariest level for, since a lot of them have bright colors and pretty looking environments, but then they also all have a bad future variant, which means that I guess every level probably could be the scariest for somebody, if we're just going based off of that. But the one level that I think stands out as being not only eerie in the bad future, but also the present and the past, is Tidal Tempest. And no, it's not scary just because it's a water level. Tidal Tempest takes place inside of a cave, which is already a pretty spooky theme for a level, but the background colors and overall vibe of the place definitely add on to that isolated feeling that we're looking for here. This is also one of the first times that I'll mention the music, because the music for the present, specifically the Japanese version, is really good at giving off that calming but still mysterious vibe, like the caverns are trying to lure you into the water itself. I also really like that you can hear the water drops echoing in the background. Awesome touch. And I also like how the Good Future sounds similar, but definitely happier and more complete. Like you've genuinely saved the place, but it still has that grand and mysterious exploration vibe to it. The level as a whole gives off similar vibes to Lost World from Adventure, exploring an ancient temple with water and stuff, so while it can be kinda cool, I do think that the eeriness in some areas makes it the scariest level in Sonic CD. Hello there, Detective Llennox. I brought you here today because I need your help. Sonic and Chip missed a few of the scariest levels on their most recent adventure, so I need you to tell me, what do you think is the scariest level in Sonic Heroes?
Well, in my opinion, the scariest level from Sonic Heroes would have to be Mystic Mansion. Every team enters this creepy mansion with all sorts of tricks up its sleeve. Statues and paintings come to life with the flick of a switch, ghosts and skeletons appear out of nowhere, and it always seems like the level is trying to pull one over on you. It also just has this eerie vibe to it, like you're never as alone as you think you are in this mansion. There's also this really trippy section at the end where the walls, ceiling, and floor all get distorted as you make your way to the end of the level. That's not even the scariest part of the level though. The scariest part is playing through it as Team Chaotix. These three not only have to make it through the Mystic Mansion, but they need to extinguish every single red flame they come across. There's nothing scarier on a platformer than tediously doing the same thing over and over again.
Very scary, perfect. And what about Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric? Just uttering that name makes me afraid, so I'll let you handle it.
Well, if you ask me, the scariest level in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric would have to be Creeper Gorge. This whole level features skeletons of what looks to be leviathans that once roamed the area. It also has a dense layer of fog that covers how deep the canyons here are. You don't know if the fall down is 5 feet or 500 feet. The thicket of thorns we see throughout the entire level seem to be alive and moving about, almost like they know of your presence and are doing all they can to stop you from continuing on your journey. The scariest part of this level overall though has to be that in order to play it, you need to dust off your long forgotten Wii U and play Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric.
Great points, Detective Llennox. Thanks for helping me out. Alright, this wouldn't be a scary levels video without some levels that were designed to be scary and creepy. You know which ones I'm talking about, so how about we start with one you probably didn't even know existed. Nightmare Zone from Sonic Lost World. Now, Lost World, much like Sonic Colors, is not a very scary game at all. In fact, it's probably one of the least scary Sonic games out there, but I already gave that title to Colors. And plus, Lost World has this level, which is actually a crossover level with Knights, a game series also made by Sega. This one is pretty much entirely a boss rush with the Deadly Six, with small running sections in the beginning, middle, and end, but each boss has a Knights-themed arena, and, I don't really know what these creatures are, I've never played Knights, but they've got new looks for their boss fights. These range from kinda weird looking to pretty creepy, and the backgrounds of the arenas are also kinda scary looking, with like giant swinging axes and stuff, which are definitely scary-ish. You also run through Windy Hill a bit here, but it's all black and white with a negative look to it, which makes it almost feel like you're going through a creepypasta, because it is weird looking. But that's really the creepiest this level, and really this game as a whole gets. Sure, Silent Forest can be a bit suspenseful, especially the levels where you avoid the owl, but come on, this is Sonic Lost World. It's really not that scary, and is mostly just a gameplay gimmick. Plus, I didn't even know this level existed until making this video, so I thought it'd be something unique. But now for a slightly creepier stage, at least I think that was supposed to be the intention here, Mystic Cave from Sonic 2. This is definitely the scariest zone in Sonic 2. It's not like terrifying or anything, but mostly just eerie and a bit creepy looking since you're in a cave. The colors of the cave in the background show you that this place is big, and also really dark, which is why there's lanterns lining the pathway, which actually is a minecart rail system in case you didn't know. But the place as a whole just looks old and has a creepy vibe to it. I mean, who wouldn't be a bit scared to explore a big underground mineshaft? Not now, Steve. There's also these centipede-looking badniks that will jump out and attack you, as well as other traps that can emerge if you aren't being careful, and vines are all over the place, which give off a sort of overgrown, unkept look to the whole place. Like maybe the mine itself hasn't been used in a while, can't really say for sure, but I think the intent was to make this a creepy zone, and while it's not a full-on horror level, it's definitely the scariest zone in Sonic 2. But here's a level that I know for sure was made to look intentionally scary, Pinball Carnival from Sonic Superstars. Okay, well, Act 1 isn't scary at all, but Act 2 has a complete shift from the bright and cheery carnival into a more sinister and spooky looking one. The colors get darker, it's nighttime, and the badniks are all supposed to be creepy badniks now, with stuff like bats, and even some dressing up like ghosts. But do you want to know the real reason this level is creepy? Why it's so scary? Because the roller coasters explode and you might fall. Wait, is that Tails doll? Dang, they really did want this level to be scary. I think that alone proves it enough. I'll also say that the music here is very intentionally supposed to be spooky. Like, it sounds good and fits the level theme, but it's definitely got that spooky vibe to match the aesthetic. Honestly, this was one of the easiest, scariest levels to pick on this whole list, because it's so obviously designed to be creepy. But our next level is probably the most obvious one in the entire video, because you can't have a scariest levels in every Sonic game list without including Pumpkin Hill from Sonic Adventure 2. I mean, come on, you know Pumpkin Hill. It's like the token Halloween Sonic level, to the point that even the official Sonic accounts usually post something about it for Halloween every year. There's literally pumpkin in the name. Knuckles even says at the beginning of the level that the place feels haunted, and you encounter ghosts all over the level. Usually they'll just do a tiny jump scare, but they're also seen doing other stuff. The main mountains look creepy, and have creepy looking stuff all over them, like this old church with a graveyard around it. Who puts a graveyard all the way up here? And there's also a ghost train on one of them, which makes that iconic. Yeah, that. Also, just take a look around. The pumpkins everywhere all have scary looking faces on them, and the color of the sky helps to make it feel more pumpkin-y, since it's a bright reddish orange. Outside of all that, there's not really much more to say than just stating the obvious. The level was clearly designed to be Halloween themed and scary, and while other levels in Sonic Adventure 2 also have ghosts and can be scary, it would feel wrong not picking Pumpkin Hill as the scariest level in this game, so that's what we're going with. Wow, those sure were some scary levels.
I'm still never doing that again. And some of those weren't even that scary.
Well, maybe not all of them, but we had to pick one from every game, you know. And The End of the World did sound pretty scary.
You weren't even there for that one. Plus, what came right after that was much scarier.
Okay, don't remind me. And that's the scariest level from every main Sonic game. A lot of them fit nicely into the categories I made, although some may be a bit less than others, but grouping them together I think made it a lot easier to go over. Let me know what you think is the scariest Sonic level of them all. And I also want to give some thanks to the other creators in this video, so don't forget to check them out. I've got their channels linked down below. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe while you're down there, and I'll see you next time. What is...